Welcome to Business Talk here on businesstech.co.za. Now, if you've ever had a debit order go off on the wrong day, a payroll run crash on deadline, or you've tried to explain the term API to your board while they stare blankly over their bifocals, then today's show is for you. We're diving into the unsung plumbing of South African financial services. That's right, payments, collections, and payroll and data. The stuff that makes the economy tick or tock, depending on your service provider. And speaking of providers who don't just tick boxes, but help rewrite them in code, I'm thrilled to be joined today by Ian Thompson, who's Group CEO of Qink Holdings. Ian's no stranger to financial services. He's had stints at some of the biggest brands in insurance, and he's got a knack for turning payment pain points into platforms. Under his leadership, Qink has become a silent juggernaut, quietly processing over 300 billion rand a year without demanding any airtime until now. So buckle up for a fintech deep dive, minus the jargon overdose. I hope there are too many TLAs in this industry, so hopefully we'll stay away from those. But let's just start with the big picture. For those not familiar with Qink, give us a brief overview of what you do and how the business has evolved to meet the shifting demands of South Africa's financial services sector.
Thanks very much, and it's a pleasure joining you this afternoon. Yes, so Qink started our journey about 27 years ago. It feels like not that long ago, but 27 years ago, we started down this journey of payments landscape, and we started with a very narrow problem statement. We needed to collect reoccurring premiums that protected and did not overextend the consumer. That is what our original use case was. Since then, we have evolved significantly as the industry has evolved, and the payments landscape is probably one of the quickest moving fintech landscapes worldwide, let alone South Africa. Over the years, we've added to our arsenal of product offerings to include encompassing almost all the current payment collections channels available, and we've added some additional product sets to our product suite: payroll deductions, emolument attachment order collections, garnishee order collections, and a whole host of other data-driven toolkits that we offer our clients to make their collection channels much easier and efficient.
Yeah, I must say, payments used to be kind of the dumb pipes in the financial services sector, but they're far from it at the moment. It's probably one of the most exciting, innovative spaces where we see a great deal of this kind of fintech type activity. And I don't want to dive too much into what's going on at the Department of Home Affairs with its massive increase in verifying users, but you've built a real API-powered engine room. So I want to walk through that. How does Qink Connected and its ecosystem work across payments and collections and payroll and data, and what makes it different in what is a very crowded marketplace?
A great question. I suppose the starting point is, why is it important to our clients to be an API-led fintech business in the ever-changing, evolving world that is IT? One thing is certain: change is evident all day, every day, and any engagement with our clients to support them in a kind of frictionless environment and make it as simple and easy for them to transact. Our clients just need to collect their premiums. Obviously, that is the be-all and end-all of the process, is to make that friction as little as possible across and expose services via microservices, APIs. And I agree with you, let's not even get stuck in the jargon. All we want to do is make sure that they are able to trigger collections in a process, and that collection is as cost effective and as efficient as possible for both them and their consumers, giving them the opportunity to be able to make sure it's a credible collection for a viable service, and integrates into all the various platforms that our clients have. Some of them are massive, complex insurance agents or financial services industries that run massive, big behemoth product administration systems. And our job is to make sure that that collection function is as efficient and effective as possible, causing as little distress to them and their clients. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense to me, and I'm glad you didn't take me through the exact weeds and detail of how it works behind the scenes, because I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that very seamless picture that you painted on the surface. Now, was there a particular moment or an insight that you thought, well, we're going to double down on this fintech journey of ours? Because I do recall a stage where, fintechs were very much in competition with the incumbents, and it seemed like an adversarial relationship. That's changed. It's much more of a partnership now. So take me through the journey that you've had as a fintech, and how does that repositioning support the broader needs of South African enterprises and institutions?
Yeah, another fantastic question. I must say, historically, there was this, and I suppose there's always competitive environment, particularly between banks and fintechs at one stage. And I think by and large, under the real great guidance of the SARB, it has created the opportunity, and I'd probably say in the last 2 years has been the most significant change in the payments landscape. And that has created the opportunity for fintechs to more play a collaborative role in the entire value chain that is the national payment system. I think from a client point of view, financial services and every other industry that we serve, I think over time they have realized that collections have become a nuanced niche area of excellence in the business cycle. In the beginning, people sold the product, and the collections was a process at the end of the value chain that kind of kicked off, and the money came in and was allocated and moved on. Over the years, that has become extremely more complex than that. The art of the collection is almost as closely integrated at point of sale as it needs to be. And as I say, with the SARB's guidance on this digitization process that they're on, opening the doors for fintechs to collaborate with the banks much more seamlessly, has put us in a position to be able to offer services to our clients, the large financial services industry and other payment industry requirements, to be able to offer a more inclusive end-to-end value chain solution rather than bits and pieces and competing on price. So it's definitely opened the door to play a much more collaborative role in this ecosystem that is payments. And remember, the other thing is every second week there is a fintech that focuses on payments. It is such a dynamic environment. So the landscape is moving quickly. You need to stay on top of it. And I think the digitization of the SARB kind of pivoted us towards a much more collaborative and inclusive approach to the payments landscape.
Has it moved fast enough? I was chatting to Lincoln Marley of the Association of Payment Providers, which was launched a couple of months ago, I think, really a collective voice for fintechs in the space. And yes, the SARB has moved, but if we look at things like open banking, we don't have it fully codified yet like we do in Europe. And if you look at Europe, my partner's son is studying at Trinity College in Dublin. He's got a Revolut account. Revolut is fantastic. There are really some amazing innovations happening. And I suppose from the outside, as a consumer, one wants to see that level of innovation here. Could we move faster?
I'm an eternal optimist living in a realist world. You could argue that we could have moved faster historically. Where I think we are now is definitely in the last kind of 24 months under the guidance, as I say, of the SARB. We can clearly see a roadmap. Yes, we could most certainly argue, and there's a merits definitely that we could have got here much quicker. Absolutely. Some of the SADC and other African territories have moved much quicker than in our environment. But I think where the SARB is now, they have created both the platform and the engagements, like ASAP is one of those exciting forums, that gives the non-banks the opportunity to play in that fintech space. So I think, yes, you could most certainly argue that we've been a little bit delayed in getting to where we are today, but that also has some benefits. We theoretically should be able to leapfrog some of the other environments with the technology and the fintech players currently in the market. So as I say, a realist optimism that says we are here now, and now is an exciting time to move this dial forward in the payment space.
All right. So, that is an interesting way of looking at it. Sometimes if you're a fast follower, not the first mover, you can learn from some of the early teething problems and not have to pay those school fees. Choosing a fintech partner these days does feel a bit like online dating, to your earlier point. There's lots out there, lots of flashy profiles. Not all of them live up to expectations. What are the real practical qualities that South African businesses should look for when selecting a payments or a collections partner?
Yeah. I suppose there's not one vanilla answer to that. It does depend on what the requirements are of that the company that's requiring these services. For us, it really comes down to kind of our tagline is credibility in motion. And what does that mean to us as a business? Credibility means, one, we have a reliable footprint of 27 years processing massive, large-scale, enormous amounts of financial transactions. And that speaks to the credibility part of our tagline. The in motion part speaks to we are always moving. The landscape is moving, payments is moving. It's now moving much faster than it did historically. But a partner that can best position you as a company with a credible track record and a proven track record of servicing transactions in the space, and can demonstrate that they are not just shaping but leading the payments landscape, and can be your long-term strategic partner in the payments landscape. So I would say those two things for me stand out. A legacy of proven track record, can demonstrate innovation and how you've adopted quickly. And then I suppose underpinning all of that is we have deep relationships with our clients. And I suppose many service providers say that. Most of our clients have been with us for 20 years and longer. Clients choose us because we walk a journey with the clients, and we become strategic partners. We don't just sell a product as a transaction. We understand their business, and our product is such that it embeds in their environment and gives them a competitive advantage over the long term in the collection space. So those kind of things stand out for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the fact that you walked such a long road with your clients as partners, I think is the biggest testimonial. But you talk, when I was on the website as well, about streamlining operations. What does that actually look like for your clients in practice? Maybe you could share a few examples where Qink solutions have directly contributed to some operational growth or efficiency for a business.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many examples, but one that practically comes to mind is we process, or we are a gateway for SASSA grant beneficiaries. SASSA grant beneficiaries are allowed to take one financial services product, a funeral policy, as part of their grant allocation. Our mechanism sits in front of all the SOTPE and SASSA grant beneficiaries, and we have introduced biometrics to both safeguard SASSA grant beneficiaries for fraud, because there used to be a lot of fraud in that space, and exploitation of SASSA grant beneficiaries. And we put the APIs and mechanisms in place to have biometric verification of the grant beneficiaries and seamlessly integrate with service providers to make sure, one, the service provider delivers a service that the SASSA grant beneficiary wants, and it is not a fraudulent deduction, and two, that the collections process is as seamless as possible, so that the grant beneficiary can be secure in that the deduction has gone off and that they have that needed cover, and the service provider is comfortable that the grant beneficiary did require that specific policy. So our technology solution and APIs throughout the value chain, both at point of sale and at the end of the process when it's time for the collections, is such that it demonstrated a much more end-to-end value chain where everybody in the value chain, the grant beneficiary, the service provider, and us sitting in the middle mechanizing the collections channel, is protected from overexploitation, and the process runs seamlessly. Does that color that picture in for you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. One can think in a world where we're seeing increased cyber security risks due to Gen AI, you can synthesize someone's voice, you can put it into a large language model, and you could socially engineer them to do almost anything for you. That biometric or some other kind of digital identifier is going to become absolutely non-negotiable. Let's talk embedded fintech. It's a big buzzword du jour at the moment. How does integrating fintech directly into your business unlock value beyond just saving time or cutting costs?
I suppose in the world of collaboration, I think what we've realized across the landscape is that there are centers of excellence and niche players that add value across the business. I think historically, whether it's large institutions or even startups, try to build everything themselves, and obviously you want ownership over the entire value chain, and it did make sense at a time. Now the value chain is just so long and complex that collaboration in bringing the best service to the consumer at the end of the day is such that you have to integrate with as little friction as possible to be able to support your client, ultimately their end clients, in such a way and often these are extremely complex. There are multiple players in one value chain who all have to integrate seamlessly to make sure that the end user has a seamless experience and does not even understand the complexity behind something that appears very simple and easy to onboard, whatever they're acquiring or buying. So I think the world, and definitely the digital platforms on the internet purchasing power, has created that door. It opened the door to say, integrate with the right role players to make sure that consumers have access to products and service providers has access to sell the products and collect the premiums due.
And if you were to look ahead into the crystal ball, what excites you most about the future of payments in South Africa, whether it's open banking, AI-led fraud detection, the cashless economy? I know we're still a long way from that, but we want to eventually get there. What are the trends on your radar screen?
Yeah. So without a doubt, I mean, the emergence of APIs, ChatGPT, all the AI functionality and buzzwords is going to be a significant game changer in the entire collection space. So that as a move, without a doubt, anybody in any industry understands the implications of that. For South Africa specifically, I'd say, again, the SARB's modernization project, particularly around digital financial ID, that gives each consumer their single ID, digital financial ID, on which they will then transact, speaks to all those other things, the cash economy, fraud detection, being able to protect consumers. So that as a single item in the payments landscape, SARB's initiative to modernize, but specific to digital financial ID, opens up doors across multiple sectors, because if you just roll that forward, your digital financial ID that you're going to use to transact, irrelevant of bank account, irrelevant of all these other things, that single ID can also be used as a verifiable credential, ideally going forward, for multiple other applications. Your educational background, your medical background when you take a life insurance policy, anywhere that you can expose those verifiable credentials that will seamlessly integrate. Gone are the days of trying to find your matric certificate or your blood results and sending that to an underwriter. The applications of that digital ID is astronomical. So I would say that space is very exciting for us, because it definitely it brings down a whole lot of barriers in the process.
And I know Sam Altman, I think, of OpenAI, has his Orb project that he wants to try and register the whole world on, where it scans your iris and does all kinds of things, because he understands the importance of this. I don't know if I would trust my biometric markers with someone like Sam Altman, and he's offering Bitcoin or WorldCoin in exchange. And again, it comes down to trust. You really have a lot of trust in the system. Well, there you have it. From back-end brilliance to front-end functionality, Qink isn't just wiring the pipes of South Africa's payment ecosystem, they're future-proofing it. A big thanks to Ian Thompson for joining us and for pulling back the curtain on the serious tech muscle behind those monthly payrolls and collections and SASSA and all the data flows that we so often take for granted. As always, you can catch this and other episodes of Business Talk on businesstech.co.za. From me, Michael Avery, take care.